We are jumping straight into the 1800s today, a time when music really stopped just being entertainment. It sort of exploded.
It really did. It became this vehicle for huge, raw, unstoppable feeling. We're talking about romantic music.
And to understand it, you have to look at what came right before, right?
Yeah.
The classical period.
Exactly. Classical music was obsessed with order, with perfect symmetry, and following these super strict rules.
And Romanticism was basically the opposite of that.
A total direct rejection of it. The main idea for these new composers was freedom, the freedom to express their deepest, most personal feelings.
So this is more than just a style change. It's almost philosophical. The composer's now saying, my feelings matter most.
Absolutely. In the 1800s, music was elevated to this almost spiritual level. People started to believe that it was the single most powerful way to communicate the entire human experience.
Without needing any words.
Without a single word. It could tell a full story, paint a vivid landscape, express joy, sadness, that deep sense of longing.
Okay, so let's unpack how they actually did that. I guess the biggest tool they had was the orchestra itself.
Right. If you want to express massive emotions, you need a massive sound.
So the orchestras just got bigger.
Significantly bigger. Think about it. If you want to express the feeling of, say, pure triumph, you need a sound that can fill a concert hall and just overwhelm the listener.
What are we talking about in terms of numbers?
Well, a classical orchestra might have had maybe 30 or 40 musicians. A typical romantic symphony needed well over 80.
80. Wow.
Sometimes even more than 100 for the really epic pieces. So you get more strings, more woodwinds, just a lot more power.
And it wasn't just about adding more violins, was it? They brought in new instruments.
Precisely. They were searching for richer, darker sounds, so they formally added instruments like the tuba and the English horn.
To get more variety in the brass and woodwinds.
Exactly. And the percussion section grew too. It went way beyond just the basic timpani drums. Now you have more cymbals, more bells, all for these big dramatic effects.
So with all that power on stage, they could get seriously loud. But it wasn't just about being loud, was it?
No, not at all. It was about the range. This is where we get into what's called dynamic contrasts.
Changes in volume.
Extreme changes in volume. This is one of the quickest ways you can tell you're listening to romantic music.
So a piece might start with a tiny whisper. That's pianissimo.
Something you can barely hear. And then suddenly, boom, it explodes into this thunderous roar or fortissimo.
That sounds like pure drama.
It's the sound of unpredictability. It's the sound of human feeling, which isn't steady, it's volatile. That massive range was key to telling an emotional story.
And with 80 or 100 musicians on stage, all trying to make those sudden changes together.
You need a leader.
The conductor.
Right. The conductor's role completely changed. They went from just being a timekeeper to being the person who interprets the composer's vision. They became absolutely necessary.
Okay, so that covers the massive sound. But what about the actual musical language?
Yeah.
The melodies and harmonies.
Yeah.
They had to change too, right?
Oh, completely. The melody became the absolute star of the show. It was the main thing carrying that emotional message.
Which is why so many famous tunes that we can all hum come from this period.
Exactly. And these melodies weren't like the short, balanced ones from before. They were much longer, more flowing.
They sort of pull you along.
They do. They're designed to feel like the natural flow of emotion, winding through the piece instead of having these clear stopping points.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The harmony. They started messing with the rules to make things sound, well, less stable.
They dove right into something called chromaticism.
Okay, what's that?
Think of a standard musical scale as a clear, well-lit highway. Everything is logical, it moves smoothly.
Got it.
Chromaticism is like taking a detour through a foggy forest. You're using notes that are outside of that standard scale.
Which would add tension.
A lot of tension. And drama and ambiguity. It's like blurring the edges of a photograph. These sudden, complex changes in harmony could signal a huge shift in the story the music was telling.
So the music starts asking questions instead of just giving answers.
A perfect way to put it. And beyond the notes, they even messed with time itself.
This would be tempo rubato.
Tempo rubato. It literally means stolen time.
So the performer can speed up or slow down.
Just slightly, for expressive reasons. So instead of a steady clock beat, the musician borrows a little time from one note and gives it back to another.
It makes it feel more human, like breathing.
That's the idea. It's personal. And it meant that two different musicians could play the exact same piece, but it would sound totally different. Each performance became unique.
So you take this massive orchestra, these flowing melodies, this tense harmony, and this flexible time. What do you get?
You get program music.
Music that tells a specific story.
Right, instrumental music that's meant to depict a certain poem or a scene or a narrative. Composers would even give their pieces really descriptive titles to give you a clue.
And this connected music directly to other arts, like literature and painting.
They all started feeding off each other. A great example is Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique.
Huh?
He wrote it as a musical diary about his obsession with a woman, and he created a specific musical theme, a melody, to represent her. He called it the idée fixe.
The fixed idea.
And this melody appears throughout the whole piece, but it changes depending on his feelings. Sometimes it's beautiful and lovely.
And other times.
Later, when he's imagining her in a nightmarish scene, the theme gets twisted and grotesque. It's the same tune, but the harmony and rhythm make it sound horrifying.
You know, that's basically the invention of the modern film score.
It is. When you hear a theme for a hero or a villain in a movie today, that's a direct descendant of the idée fixe. John Williams perfected it, but he didn't invent it.
And composers weren't just inspired by human stories. They were also obsessed with nature and the supernatural.
Oh, absolutely. The power of a stormy sea, the mystery of a dark forest, like ghosts, witches, ancient legends.
And they used the orchestra to mimic those sounds.
All the time. You can hear instruments that sound like birds chirping or rolling thunder or wind whistling through the trees. It was all about taking the listener on a journey to a dream world.
This era wasn't just about the music, though. It was also about the musicians. This is when the virtuoso was born.
The virtuoso was the rock star of the 19th century, a performer with just unbelievable technical skill.
We're talking about people like Franz Liszt on the piano or Niccolo Paganini on the violin.
They were celebrities. Audiences would pay huge amounts of money just to watch them play these incredibly difficult pieces with lightning-fast scales and rhythms.
And this demand for incredible skill actually pushed the instruments themselves to get better, especially the piano.
The piano became the king of instruments. The biggest change was adding a cast iron frame inside.
What does that do?
It meant the instrument could handle much thicker strings under higher tension, so you get a much louder, richer, more powerful sound.
Perfect for a soloist who has to fill a huge concert hall.
Right. One person could play the melody and the entire accompaniment at the same time. And the piano also became central to home life. Composers wrote thousands of shorter pieces for it. Nocturnes, etudes, waltzes.
Having a piano was a status symbol.
It was. And that piano was also crucial for another genre, the art song, or Lieder, as they're called in Germany.
This is a solo singer with a piano.
Yes, usually setting a fagus poem to music. But the piano wasn't just playing chords in the background. It was a full partner in the storytelling.
How so?
Well, if the poem was about a frantic horseback ride, the piano would play a galloping rhythm. It would mimic the sounds and enhance the story the singer was telling.
So if romantic music is about expressing an individual's deep feelings, I guess it makes sense that it would eventually expand to express the feelings of an entire country.
And that's exactly what happened. We call it nationalism in music.
Composers started using their own country's folk songs and legends in their work.
It was a way to show national pride, often pushing back against the dominance of German or Italian music. They'd use traditional dance rhythms, folk melodies.
And that would help define the cultural identity of places like Russia or Bohemia, which is now the Czech Republic.
A great example is the Czech composer Dvořák. He filled his symphonies with Slavic folk rhythms, and audiences immediately heard it as their music. It created this powerful sense of belonging.
So with all this emotional ambition, all this storytelling, the old, rigid musical structures just couldn't contain it all.
They really couldn't, so composers started to break the box. They stretched the old forms, like the symphony, making them last for over an hour.
An hour.
It turned the concert into this massive, extended emotional journey. And they also invented entirely new forms, like the symphonic poem.
What was that?
That was the ultimate declaration of freedom. A single movement for orchestra where the shape of the music was decided entirely by the story it was telling.
Not by any pre-existing rules.
The story came first. The emotional flow was more important than following a textbook structure.
So in the end, romantic music really gave composers permission to feel everything and to share those feelings with the world.
It did. It used massive sound, celebrity performers, and dramatic stories to do it. It taught us that music could be the hero, the landscape, and the hidden emotional truth all at once.
And that legacy is why the most moving music you hear in a movie today owes everything to that 19th century quest for freedom.
Exactly right.
Keep listening and keep exploring. Good luck with your studies.